As the organization grows, the amount of output that's created gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you go to a company with 10,000 employees, literally 100 people in there is doing most of the work. Welcome everyone to the Authentic as Fuck podcast.
What's up?
Welcome, Elizabeth.
Welcome.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, kind of building off what we were talking about, because we were talking about how why can't they make that mic smaller? But maybe it's so good because it's bigger.
Yeah, I think.
And that's kind of how it is. Like, you know, when computer first came out, I remember people saying, like, why wouldn't every software be cloud-based? Like, when games started coming out, right, and games started becoming cloud-based where you can play it from your phone, like, why wouldn't everything be like that? Because every year there's more powerful game that comes out that the cloud cannot handle, that you need a console for.
That's why.
That's why.
It works. So they're just going to keep doing that. But I mean, the consoles have gotten smaller. I mean, I remember back, I'm not a gamer at all nowadays, but back when I would play, like, I remember how big like the PlayStation was and how big like Nintendo was. And then I remember when like Nintendo 64 came out, it was like a big deal because it was so much smaller. And then the Cube.
But it got bigger again.
And then they had the really slim.
Because now they're pretty much like a computer.
Okay. So they have to process like all the video and all that.
I feel like we got all the sizes wrong. Because like in the 90s, everything was about smaller. But like, look at the phones now.
Bigger.
Like, it's all about bigger. You know, like in the 90s, phones kept getting, remember the Star Trek, and it kept getting smaller and smaller. And then at some point it got bigger and bigger.
Well, I mean, because there was more that you needed to see, right? Like back when we had flip phones, like I remember when I got the Razor and it's like, oh, look how thin and small this phone is. There really wasn't much to the Razor, the Motorola Razor. And there was a pink one, which I had. And it was like super,
I remember.
super
that's
thin.
like, okay, yeah.
Like that was their whole thing.
Yeah. It's like, it was the thinnest one.
Yeah. But I mean, back then, there really wasn't much to look at. Like, I wasn't getting on the internet. I just needed to be able to text, really. And the games on there it wasn't anything phenomenal. So people weren't emailing. People weren't like using it the way that they do. And so then once the iPhone,
it's too early.
So I think the value there was like, oh, it's really thin because it's not doing very much compared to what it's doing now.
You know, that's how technology usually works. It's we first do one thing and then we do it wrong. And then we figure out, actually, we went the opposite way. And then usually the best answer is somewhere in between. So for example, like, remember when TVs first came out, there was no such thing as cable. It was all analog. It was all rabbit ears, right? Everything was wireless. And then we figure out the wave, like the cables are better. Digital is better than waves. So we switched to cables. It was all about cable, right? From the 80s to 90s, you know? And then now we're all going back to like now wireless again. Everybody wants Wi-Fi, right? But because it's before wireless is analog. And they were going the right direction. But then because of digital, they switched everything to cable. And then now they have best of both worlds. Now they can do both. And that's how every technology works. That's how, like a PC, the computer that you're using now, before there was a mainframe, and then you had a remote, like a weak computer that connects to the remote frame to do all the calculations and send it back. And then somebody came up with the brilliant idea of building all of that into one computer. You know what I mean? So in the beginning, we were like, oh, it's all about the network. We had it right. And then people were like, no, we got to bring it all into the PC, right? And then now everything's going back to cloud where, okay, now everything needs to live in the server. You know what I mean? But because back then there was no such thing as an internet. Right. It was like an intranet. So cloud was the right way, but it wasn't good because it was intranet. But now we have the internet. So it's actually Yeah, like every technology works like that.
Yeah, I think that's what's required for the evolution, right? Like as things progress, you're going to have these. It's not linear. Like progress is not linear in everything. Like I remember when I was really young in my career, one of my mentors was talking to me because I was super frustrated about, not progressing the way I thought I would in my career, and thinking it was like do A, B, C, D, E, and it's just you just check off the boxes. In reality, he was like, no, what happens is you he compared it to two things. He compared it to like leapfrogging. So you're like kind of hopping back and forth, but you're still going forward. Like you might go over to the side, but you're still ultimately going forward. And he also compared it to like football in like a football game. Like there's you may step back, you have a play that takes you back a few yards, but overall you gained, or you're gaining on one play, but you get pushed back a little bit. You gain, but ultimately you're going to go make that touchdown. And so as you were talking about like technology, it's not linear. So much of growth and evolution and change is not a linear progress. It's going to be like forward, back, sideways, learn, just like with just even as individuals, that's how we grow. It's not linear.
What is progress? Like what?
Oh yeah,
You know what
that's, I mean, there you go. There's a good one to stump me, but what I do know, I know what progress isn't, and progress is not linear. And I think we just, it's easy to get, particularly in like personal growth and development, or even your business, have these expectations that it's got to be up or nothing, or moving towards the goal or nothing. Like it's failure if it's anything else. And I think that's so not true. Granted, it's extremely difficult to be in the middle of that and believe that it's not failure.
It probably has to do with what you were talking about, that like control, right? Like you don't like being out of control. And the fact that like, because when things are linear, that's you're in control. Do you know what I mean? But when things are zigzag like that, you're not in control. And it's those two are probably related.
Oh yeah, I mean, now that you say it, of course. And I mean, like, it sounds so cliche to say, but those zigzags, like I can look back and recognize how much growth actually happened, more growth, more development, more progress actually happened in the unexpected failures and successes. Like the paths that I didn't really, or the these little roads that you take that are sideways from what you were thinking. They actually are probably what was required for me to move forward. I mean, even the pandemic in our business, like we were like, oh, this is the ultimate just nail in the coffin. Like this isn't going to work. And this is it. You got to.
That's a great example. I mean, because it happened to both of us.
Yeah.
Right? Like it almost opened up a possibility that we thought we just discounted.
We didn't know it was there.
I mean, we knew it was there, but we just never thought of it as a possibility.
Yeah.
I just think, because it's almost like when for some reason when people quit their job and start a company. I mean, I guess it makes sense when somebody quits their job and start a business. They're like 100 and it's 1,000% in. They're so excited that they don't even think about the possibility of going back to a 9-to-5 job. That scenario is like out of the picture. Mm-hmm. So when they run that business, they don't even consider that as even a possibility. Do you understand what I mean? Kind of like how, like if you look at the switch that you guys made from B2B to B2C to B2B, a lot of people don't realize that. Like you can go from B2B to B2C or B2C to B2B, like either way. Like your business is not end all. Do you know what I mean? Like you can be a service business and all of a sudden make a product, and you can be a product business and people don't like this product and you can turn it into a service. I actually know a perfect business like that. I had my first client at Night Owl was actually a repeat client from my freelance client, but this guy got all this funding and started a business where this was 10 years ago, but he had this like blood glucose and blood pressure test machines, which had this USB plug in it. So what we did was we built this dongle that you can plug in there, and it sends that data up to the cloud, like every time you
Okay.
take it,
Yeah.
and then it tracks it. And then what happens is, if you fill out the right insurance form and stuff like that, that actually pays for your insurance and insulin bill and all of that. Like, so it's good for like senior citizens, right? But within like a couple of years, we've realized that it's too much of a learning curve for us to get these senior citizens to use these machines. Like, even though they're really simple, just to get to that process was too hard. So they ended up pivoting the business. But what ended up happening, because they were working with all these insurance companies, like the insurance companies started like buying their machines and like hiring people to like go out and
Oh,
implement it
wow.
with their patients. So it went from a failing B2C business to a thriving B2B business.
Wow.
Do you understand what
Yeah.
I mean?
So again, it's like what we're talking about, this evolution that happens that
Yeah.
that you just naturally like if you stick with it and you learn from it and then you pivot along with the business and not resist it, because I think sometimes entrepreneurs as
Yeah.
yeah, we can
Resist.
resist, like we're gripping to this idea of what we thought was possible, what we thought was, what we thought the answer was. And if you grip to that and you just try to force it to happen, it won't. I think you have to be able to surrender in
Yeah.
some ways. Like, oh, okay, there's this, the external environment is telling me that the need is something different than what I predicted it to be. I got to put my ego
Mhm.
aside and go with it, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um
That the that's why I think running a business is such a good ex- I guess parenting too. It's very similar, because when you're a parent, very soon you realize that, like, you realize that the okay, when you run a business, very quickly you realize that it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter whether I think I'm right or wrong. The market is always right,
mhm.
right? Like that, the market never lies. So you learn to kill your ego really quickly, because it doesn't matter how much you think you're right. You put it out there, it's not going to sell or it's not going to do well, right?
Right.
And at that point, you can kill your ego and make the switch and try something else, or you can keep going, right? But you keep going, you're going to quickly fail. So I think that's why business is like such a great way to learn how to drop that ego and just really get humbled. And raising a child, I think, is the same thing, because you're going to quickly realize it doesn't matter whether you're right or not.
Nope.
The kid's going to do what the kid's going to do,
So you
right?
got to meet the market. You got to meet them where they are. Like,
Yeah,
and
you got to find the solution
man,
somehow.
that is a good example, because I'm thinking about like how many times like I could instinct like I could just put my walls up and let's go head to head with my 3.5-year-old. But in terms of like, oh no, you're gonna get in the car seat. You're gonna, I mean, it's simple stuff, right? But if the more I
Yeah,
try to force my way, the less likely it's gonna happen.
yeah. I mean, you can
Oh,
scream all you
you can
want, nothing's
scream,
gonna happen.
fight, argue, but again, it's like once you surrender to what is, and you have to find a different way and meet the market of how we're gonna get you in this car seat.
Hmm.
Man, things get a lot easier.
But don't you think that? Yeah, I guess. I mean, how come they can do that with their kids, but they can't do that? in the
Oh,
real
dude.
world. I don't understand.
But I don't think most people, I think you ask most parents, I don't think most are doing that all the time. I mean, that's,
Oh, really?
yeah. I mean, it is a hard, it is a,
That's true. I think most parents actually, when I see in the public, they kind of ignore it.
right. It's like, no,
They don't even scream at them. It's more like I don't
no,
care.
right. It's an intentional decision in the same way it is in business. You have to make an intentional decision to act a different way
Yeah,
and to do something different.
yeah,
I don't think it just happens. And that's why it's so hard.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I find this shocking when like kids curse at their parents, and the parents just take it. And I'm just like, really? Like, are you that lazy that you're not gonna do anything about that? Like, do you
yeah.
know what I
Well,
mean?
and I mean, sometimes too, in their defense, sometimes you got to pick your battles. I don't know what other battles you have. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
pretty big one. But so I was like, okay, am I going to fight about, I'm not at that level where my kids are cursing at me, thank goodness. But it's like, am I
Mhm.
really going to fight with you about eating your string cheese the way I want you to eat it or not feeding it to the dog? I'm probably not going to fight that battle today. Like, I'm going to let you do what you want. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but man, it's a delicate.
No, but I'm saying it's by the time it got there, it's already too late.
Mhm.
Like, because I would never even like it's like what Denzel Washington said. I forgot in which movie. Like, like if you kill me in your dreams, you better wake up and apologize, right? Like in my dreams, I wouldn't even curse my
Yeah.
parents.
Oh my.
Do you know what I mean?
Me either. I cannot
so
imagine.
so the fact that it even got
Yeah.
there, that means there was 10 steps before that went
Yeah.
wrong. And a lot of like, I heard Jordan Peterson talking about this story of the dragon that's getting bigger, and like that's what a lot of people do, right? These problems are usually tiny little problems that they just let go,
Mhm.
let go, let go, and little by little, the more you ignore, and the problem, because the problem gets bigger, the more you ignore it, right? The more you ignore it, the more bigger it's, and it's the same reason why people get out of shape. It's the same reason why people don't pay their bills. It's the same reason why they don't start their Instagram. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh
It's like,
yeah. Dude, I mean, yeah, I was gonna say all of that. Like, man, I mean, if you ignore addressing anything in a relationship, right, it's gonna build up over time, and then you lose it over the dishes being in the sink. Like,
yeah,
and you're like, I want a divorce. I'm out of here because you didn't
uh,
address the
uh,
all the little things along the way.
uh.
But it's so uncomfortable, I think, for people.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, when Michael said most people would avoid uncomfortable conversation, most people will do like 40 hours of work to avoid a 30-minute uncomfortable conversation.
I'm
Like,
guilty though. I'm guilty of that.
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Like, man, I'm guilty of like that in myself. Um, I'm really bad at like feeling my feelings. And so I just let them build up, build up, build up. And then there's an explosion that's completely irrelevant to the scenario um, in that moment. So, like,
Mhm.
even like uncomfortable conversations with myself, I think like I have a hard time with. Um, and I mean, that's just thinking about a business.
The uncomfortable conversation with yourself probably is about an uncomfortable conversation with someone else, right? Because
Yes.
usually, like when I look, for example, the reason why I'm not talking to this person right now is because of this. But what is the real root cause of that,
Yeah.
right? Something like that. But it's still related to that.
No, that's
It's
true.
still the same thing that's defending me from. Because if it was just us, there is no need for us to really work on ourselves. I think the reason why we need to work on ourselves is because we live with other human beings.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're exactly right. Because, yes, it's those relationships that are dependent on it.
We have no problem with dogs. Like, the dog pees in my living room. I'm not gonna be like holding a grudge on them forever. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, that's true. That's true. That is funny because I guess the dynamic of the relationship is very different. Yeah.
because we have different expectations from humans than we do from dogs. But why? I mean, we shouldn't have any expectations, regardless. But the fact that we have expectations, I think, is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a problem because it's human. Like, that's what human brains do.
But I mean, I think that then relates back to like the businesses, or like you have these expectations, and your ability to detach from the expectation is what is required to be successful. And you have to set it aside because you can get so wrapped up in that. 'Cause, like, I'm thinking about, like, I have expectations of how I think people should operate. And so many times my expectation of how people should do things actually creates a wedge in my relationships because I expect them to do something differently, expect them to act the way I would act, expect them to act in a different way or do something in a different way.
I mean, that's everyone though, not
No,
just you.
I know. But it's just like all these like expectations that we put out there. And like you said, it's human nature. We're going to do it. But it's like, how much is the expectation driving your experience on this earth? And like, how much can you like detach from it? You can't stop yourself from having the expectation. You can't stop yourself from expecting you're going to be successful and you shouldn't, I don't think. But what you can do is kind of detach from that expectation, or like see that expectation for what it is. And that makes it a lot easier to keep going.
I always struggle with that. Like, because in order for you to do something, because like the motive is that, oh, I want this thing, right? I want to achieve this goal. And that's the motive for you to go towards that goal. But then the stronger that motivation is, the stronger you'll go, right? But if you don't have that expectation, then it's harder for me to like motivate myself to do that every day, daily, right? To do that thing daily. And that's, I think, where most people go wrong, is because like you're right. When I grip too hard, when I want something too bad, I never get it. It's whenever I get it, it's like, oh shit, I ended up getting that when I stopped wanting it, when I didn't care anymore, right? So yeah. So maybe the thing is like there is something you're going for, but most likely what you'll get is something else.
Probably. And I think too, like when you said the thing about motivation, man, motivation can only take you so far. And I think people get, in my experience, motivation is not what keeps me up. Like going to go work out or getting up to like take care of the kids. Like, especially when I think about working out, people are like, how are you so motivated? Most of the time I'm not. Most of the time I'm not motivated at all to get up at 3:30 to go work out. What it requires is discipline. You got to be disciplined to do that stuff. Like that is what will keep you. Motivation is just like not reliable. That is not gonna. I just don't think motivation is what drives people to like reach things or achieve things. Like I think it's just sheer discipline. Like I'm just gonna do this even when I don't want to. When I'm absolutely, completely, totally not motivated to do it, I'm gonna do it anyway. You're gonna show up and you're just gonna do it anyway. Like I think that is That's the difference in people.
But no, nobody can do that.
What do you,
I mean, almost nobody can do that
really?
because like the human, that's how the human motor system works, right? Our brain is designed to minimize the number of calories that we use, right? So for us to get up and use that calorie, our brain has to justify like, what am I getting out of this, right? So if so, that's what the word motivation, like motive, comes from, right? Like the motive for me to drink water is because I'm thirsty, right? So
Yeah.
every action that we take, there's a motive behind it. So even a discipline, there's a motive behind the discipline. Do you know what I mean? There's a
Yes.
reason why I force myself to.
There's an objective. There's definitely an objective, but I think I I still think you can have that objective and not feel motivated to achieve it. Like you know what I mean? Like that's why
That means maybe that shouldn't really be your objective,
so you
because that means you don't really want it, in my opinion.
okay.
Don't you think? I mean,
I
I
think
guess.
motivation is
Okay, I'm
fleeting.
not gonna.
I think motivation is fleeting,
Yeah.
but discipline is the thing that's going to keep you working towards the goal. So I personally separate my motivation. I mean, I do have a motivation. I
I
see
agree.
you. I see what you're saying. But ultimately there's an objective. I want to be healthy. I want to work out. I want to feel better. Like I'm using that as an example, but that motivation will only get me so maybe the better way to think about it's only going to get me so far. It's only going to get so much for me until there comes a point where I have to flip on just the discipline to keep going.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Especially when it's hard.
Because one is logic, because we're very emotional. So if we rely on motivation, there's going to be sometimes we work out hard and sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
And those are the times then when we're supposed to, right? When we don't want to.
Yeah.
So your logical brain is forcing you to do the things that you're not motivated to do, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a motive to do it at that moment, except your logical brain telling you. So you're just like purely forcing yourself to do it. And I agree, because that's basically delaying gratification. Like your logic taking over and doing that is delaying gratification, and is the number one key to success. But still, most people don't do it.
No, that's true.
And most people will probably never do it.
And I think that's why they're entrepreneurs. Most of them fail. There's only so many Olympic athletes, right? Like that.
Well, have you seen the marshmallow test from Stanford University, where they give kids
Oh
marshmallow and
yeah,
say,
yeah, don't touch it.
yeah,
Like
I mean, so
yeah,
but that test almost shows that it's not nurture, it's nature, because those kids, they follow them all the way through like adulthood, and there was like a direct correlation between people who gave up the marshmallow and people who were successful. So, and that wasn't it's not an environmental thing, right? Because when they're a child,
yeah.
those were almost innate for them, right? They either had that discipline or they didn't. You
Yep.
know,
No,
it wasn't
I
learned.
believe that. I don't think you can learn discipline necessarily.
I mean, yeah. So that's why I always struggle with. For me, the only time I can self discipline myself to consistently do something is when I believe in that outcome, or I believe in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't have motivation, I can't discipline myself to do it. But if I do have that motivation, I can discipline myself infinite amount. Like
Yes.
sleeping in the office,
Oh no, I know.
like in the air mattress, like
Even now, you like working 24/7. Like yeah. No,
but yeah, that comes from a higher motivation, I guess.
yeah.
And I think most people would, if they, here's what I think the problem is. it all goes back to what I said about like running a business humbling you. Like when you work in a 9 to 5 job, especially here in America, you're so safe. There's safety net after safety net after safety net that I think you almost forget to, like, you almost forget that life is not guaranteed. Like, your survival is not guaranteed. Like, nothing in life is guaranteed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just demand 100% security all the time.
Yep.
So what ends up happening is they wouldn't take a bet where you have 99.9% chance of winning because it's not 100%. That's the reason why most people don't quit a job, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if they have a chance to succeed in a business, they still want the 100% security paycheck in the bank every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And what ends up happening, I think, there is then you stop believing in yourself. When you live in that kind of safety net, I think you stop believing in yourself. First, you stop trying, and then you stop believing in yourself because, for me, I have so much confidence that if I take these actions, that I'm going to become success. Like, I'm going to reach this outcome, right? And that confidence is what makes me do it. Put in the work day in, and even though today nothing is happening, this month nothing is happening, my bank account is not growing, I'm still willing to invest that work day in and day out for the next year because I have faith that it'll happen. And if it doesn't, I'll figure something out, right? That faith is what's making me do it. But most people will put in the work day in and out, knowing logically that that's going to happen. And a month in, they feel like, I don't see that. Like, I'm just like walking in the darkness and I got to do this for another couple of years, right? And that's when they lose faith and they just give up, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have that 100% guarantee.
Yeah.
And that safety net created that for them.
So there's a lot of reliance on like the external support,
unemployment, insurance,
well,
401k,
your job, right? Like, you become very your self-reliance is now driven by external things. Your job primarily, like that is what's driving, that paycheck. If you work a regular job, like, that paycheck is the external factor that you become reliant on. Like, everything is hinging on that. And then I think there are people that are able to have more of the self-reliance. Like, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna be the one that can make it happen. But it also, when you were talking, it made me think about, like, early on when we started this with Michael. Like, I mean, we're now like in year 4 of doing this, and you hear people say all the time, like, this doesn't happen overnight. Like, this particular, like, speaking, this area of, or this, like, niche of what he's doing, what he's in. I mean, these people don't just, like, wake up one day, like Tony Robbins didn't just wake up one day and, like, start to be this, like, known everywhere kind of motivational speaker. I think it was so easy for me in particular, to, like, forget that and want to be like, oh, this isn't working. We got to do something else. But Michael, as, like, an entrepreneur, someone who believes fully in himself, who doesn't want to work for anyone else, is like, no, we just keep going. Like, this doesn't happen overnight. And even when it's
I also
growing.
think that once you've done it once, that belief is solidified.
Yeah, you trust it more. Like, you trust that you can do it.
Because you've done it. I've been in the dark before.
Yeah.
I've walked in the dark without knowing if there's an end or not before.
Yeah.
So going through it again, now I have faith that there's.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like, I've done this before. I have the experience. I've done it before. I can do it again. No, I think you're right.
And it's a familiar feeling that
Yeah.
Despair of like, oh, nothing's happening. That's a
Mhm.
familiar feeling that you've been there. I've been down this road before.
Yeah. This isn't
And the
as
third time
scary.
becomes easier.
Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. I'm terrified,
And
but
this is exactly why I tell everybody to always quit their job. I mean, I guess first of all, I know, because I know most people are not going to,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But then the ones that they do, when they do actually listen and they quit their job, like every single one of them have turned out like exponentially better.
Yeah, I mean, it completely shifts your right. You go from this external like safety net, but then you've
Mm-hmm.
got this driver of like it's only you and yourself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my brother actually just recently quit his job. He's been running
The
uh,
one that's in the military
yeah. So he quit the military, or he not quit, but like did whatever they
retired. Yeah.
retired. Yeah, gosh,
Mm-hmm.
butcher that. But he retired like 6 months ago. But he's had like a regular job, and he had started a trash company, and so now he's like a disposal company that goes around and
Okay.
like picks up trash.
Pick up trash.
Yeah. And he
Like The
yeah.
Sopranos.
Yeah. Yes. He's a money launderer. No, I'm just kidding. Um but he's been doing that hustling. I mean, he has had employees. He just never, because like the cash flow wasn't at a point where he could quit his job. Um but they recently like purchased their first like legit garbage truck, and he quit his job, and it's so cool to see
That's his first fleet.
his because he's been doing like
That's
regular
awesome.
trucks that are like rigged
Mhm.
garbage trucks, but he sent me a picture like,
Okay.
and so now they have like their first like true
That's
garbage
awesome.
truck. It's actually really, really cool. It's cool to see him like do that, and like to take that leap of, all right, I'm gonna quit my job. I have employees. He has a business partner, but like quitting his job and just seeing
I
how he's
mean,
hustled.
that's exactly what I want to tell everyone to do. Because here's the thing, right? I don't know your brother, obviously, but I'm assuming that he's similar to you, right? Meaning he's probably also very valuable at his job where he works at.
Yeah.
Not just his own business, but the company
But
where he works
yeah.
in. I bet you he's also valuable there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I notice is the reason why I tell everyone to quit their job is what I notice is that the most valuable people in the company. Did I tell you about that? I don't know if it's called Pareto distribution or Price law, where a square root of a group produces half the outcome. Meaning, if you have 4 people, 2 people produce half the outcome, right? So it's equal, like two. So
Mm-hmm.
that's about right? But if you have 10,000 people, 100 people produces same outcome as 5,000 people. The problem is we don't know which 100.
Mm.
And that's how every business works. Like as an organization grows,
Oh,
the amount of
interesting.
output that's created gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you go to a company with 10,000 employees, literally 100 people in there is doing most of the
Most of
work.
the work. Oh, that's very
Yeah.
interesting. No, I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that.
And the reason why they can't fire the other people is because they don't know which are the 100.
Which are the 100? Yeah.
They don't know exactly who are the 100 in that out of that 10,000. That's the problem. Okay.
I'm sure they have an inkling, but they're not exactly sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And you actually wouldn't know because those are the quietest people.
Mm-hmm.
You would the people that you think obvious to him, it's actually you would be wrong because there are the people who are loud and who knows how to talk, so they move up, but they're not necessarily the ones that are needed in the company. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very apparent to me from me just visiting my clients' companies and talking to employees, and it's very apparent, right? So when I say people to quit, usually people resist, right? But usually those are the people that are one of those 100 people. And those are the people that if they quit, their chance of success will multiply. They're actually being underutilized by working in that company, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the ones that want to be the entrepreneur. Like most people that are like 23 years old and saying that they're starting a business, and the advice I want to give them is shut the fuck up and go fucking work in a company, right? The people that I'm telling them to go start their company actually don't even want to start their company.
I know, right?
So
Yeah.
it's weird. The ones who want, and that's what I found out about everything. The ones who wants to lead usually are the worst leaders.
Mm-hmm.
The best leaders don't want to lead. They just want to shut the fuck up and do their job right. And they just want everything to go right. That's all they want. They're forced to lead in
Because
the
they're good.
absence of leadership. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And then they end up being like super unhappy
Mm-hmm.
in the leadership roles.
And the same thing, the best entrepreneurs I've met are the ones who didn't want to quit their job. But once they did, they flourished, right? The worst entrepreneurs are the ones that are like, want to be a CEO at age 23.
Okay. Yeah. Gosh, I'm thinking about 23-year-old me who's like, man, I had a lot to learn. I still do, but you just don't know anything.
I mean, yeah, 23, I feel like is the developing age. I think 25 is kind of like, I personally think, everything should be 25. The cutoff age for like voting, alcohol, like everything, all of those things. I don't think it should be 18. I think it should be 25. Because in my opinion, there's a bigger difference between 18 and 25 than 12 and 18.
Agreed. I know. I agree. And like, I don't even,
Just
can't
physically,
remember.
there's a big difference between
Physically,
12 and 18. But mentally, there's a bigger
Yeah.
difference, I think, between 18 and 25.
Yeah, I was trying to think about when does your frontal lobe like completely form? I think it's like 25. It's in that age, right? There's a very distinct difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And I think that's when your frontal lobe and like your emotional development is kind of is complete. But I mean, the amount of growth,
And that's the reason why.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the amount of growth that happens between 18 and 25. As you're talking, I'm like, gosh, that is like, it's almost like the amount of growth that has happened from my like newborn to my
0 to 18.
Yeah. Like from 0 to 3.5, like the amount of like, oh, you can't even open your eyes to like, you're now having full-fledged conversations. You've learned an entire language. Like it's almost like that amount of growth, I think, as I think about how much, and it's much more emotional, right? Like your emotional growth.
It's the ability to make good decisions.
Yeah. Your decision making. Which is
like
why
your decision making is way different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just think about an 18-year-old college in a frat party versus like a 25-year-old working in society, right? The way they're gonna make decisions is so different. And I can prove this by, car insurance like drastically drops when you hit 25.
Yeah.
Like, you think insurance companies are not dumb? They've done their math.
They've done. Yeah. They've got some research. There's
definitely a reason why.
There is a huge
at 25 it drops.
Yes. There is a reason.
And I bet you it's that.
Because insurance companies are not idiots. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Okay, so
I always try to, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I always try to follow the money in terms of, because money is the universal language. I feel like that keeps our society going. Without money, we would collapse, right? Like money is the trust that, like, the reason why we're not, no matter what people thinks, we're at the most peaceful time in Earth history. And why is because of money. It's because, why would China want to fight us when they can make money with us? Like, money is what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Keeps the peace going. Yeah.
That's kind of funny when you say that. Okay, this is like totally off what we're talking about, but I really want to get your opinion on this.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen what do you know what Lizzo did?
Oh
You
yeah,
know
I
who
saw your. Let me bring it up. Actually,
did you look at her post by any chance? Because I
no,
like
because I don't even know who Lizzo is. So maybe we should start from there.
what? No, okay. First of all, you've definitely heard her music.
Okay.
Um, you've definitely heard her music. She's a very influential Black female artist.
Okay.
Let me see
I mean,
popular
I've heard of
songs.
like Cardi B.
Um, God, I can't think of like what her like. Yeah, what's her biggest hit? Juice, Rumors, Good as Hell. She's got a bunch of songs like on TikTok that went viral.
Okay.
Anyway, she is
So she's
a
like a recent star, new star.
recent star in the last I'd say the last couple years. Um anyway, she's very influential in like the artist community right now. So she had a song that apparently had a derogatory term in it. I didn't even know it was a derogatory term, but it was brought to her attention. And so yesterday, I think it was
What's the term?
yesterday, spaz was the term. And so,
SPAZ.
yes.
SPAZ. Okay.
Yeah.
I never heard of it.
So
Why is that
like
derogatory?
the cerebral palsy community was like talking about how like people that have
Like how they
spasms or
spaz.
things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But that's a different. Yeah.
but it was brought to her
It's
attention
a
like
totally
this could
different
be,
word, right? Yeah.
well, I don't know. I'm not fully educated on why, like the ins and outs,
I
but
guess it
the
depends on the context of how she used it, right?
yeah, and I think she was like, using it in a way, the lyric in her song, it was a lyric in a
Mhm.
song, was probably used in a way to like be, as a like name calling kind of situation, I
Okay.
guess.
Okay. Got it.
Anyway, so she posted on like it was brought to her attention that this word was like offensive to that
Mhm.
community in particular. And what I thought was like really cool about what she did, I'm just pulling up her post, is like um she wrote a post about it. Like she owned it. She was like, it's been brought to my attention that there was a harmful word in this song, Girls, and she wanted to make it very clear like she was not trying to promote derogatory language because she's a Black overweight woman. So she was talking
Like,
about
so
how
she had
like
no idea.
she's
Like
she had
she
no
didn't.
idea.
Yeah.
She didn't know that she
I
was
mean
being
that
derogatory.
happens so often now, though.
Yeah, and she said I've had so many hurtful words used against me. So she was like, I've changed the lyric in the song, and um she was like, this is a direct result of me listening and taking action and learning, right? Like, hey, this is brought to my attention.
Yeah,
I'm
but
going to do something
listening to
different.
who?
To the community that was offended.
You mean the people who? Yes, the people who offended,
The people that she offended. Yeah.
or people
And
who spoke out, whatever, on
yeah,
Twitter or
people that,
whatever. Yeah.
right, that told her about it. And she was like, I'm dedicated to being a part of change. And so what, and then it also, like, reading that made me also think about Adele, who recently, like, we had bought tickets to see her in Vegas in her Vegas show, and she had to cancel it. Like, couldn't get it. It was like at the 11th hour. Like, she was
Oh, that
canceling the
sucks.
show. And she was like in tears and did this very tearful, I am so sorry, but I just have to own the fact that the show is not what I expect it to be. It's not the quality that I expect it to be. It's not anything I want to do, but we've run into so many roadblocks. We've done everything in our power to change it. I mean, she was in tears, just like, I'm so sorry, but I have to cancel. Kind of like owning very publicly in a very raw, vulnerable way, which I feel like Lizzo did too, is like, I was wrong. I'm going to do my best, the best thing I know to do. I'm going to take the best action
Yeah.
that I can to make it right, but being very public and open about being wrong. I mean, either
The
way, you're going to
apology,
get
right? Yeah.
it's not even like and it
Like
isn't,
a
it's like I'm taking ownership for my decision. It's not even like I'm so sorry for what I did. I need to be educated or whatever. Like they just are just like, there's something about how both of them for me just like owned what happened and is like, this is what I'm going to do, and doing it so publicly. I mean, you've got two figures here that are like such public figures. They're going to get slaughtered either way.
mhm,
Like for whatever they choose, right?
mhm.
Um but I don't know, it just seemed very refreshing that you just don't see that a lot, where people are just so willing
To
to say I'm
apologize.
wrong. Yeah. Not
Uh,
even to apologize, cuz I think people apologize and there's inauthentic apologies, and but like to just say I failed. Like Adele was saying, I failed. I failed my fans. I failed you. I
mm-mm.
did not do what I thought I could do, and now I'm having to come to you and tell you I failed. Um and same thing for Lizzo, is like, I'm having to come to you and tell you that I failed. And you're not only are you like, that's like the ultimate uncomfortable conversation, I think, is like you're having to do it on this like world platform, and
Mm-mm.
everyone's going to be talking about how you did it, what you did wrong, like everything. So anyway,
It's probably just like a natural reaction.
what do you mean?
Like like why people do that. Um,
Yeah.
like why people don't admit that they're wrong. Like even when they know they're gonna get caught. Like
Mhm.
because it's a for me to say that I was wrong or I'm guilty is such a natural. It's such hard thing to do naturally. I think human. Like for example,
Mhm.
when I was like 11, I got caught shoplifting. Like uh, I was like stealing like Hot Wheels from like Kmart,
Yeah.
and I got caught, and they took me to the back office. And this was like when I was like 11 years old, and like I was denying it and denying it. Obviously, they caught everything on camera. So he like
Right.
reached into my pocket and like
It's
and
like, yeah.
but but I was asking him like do people actually say they they yes I stole it, and he said that like because there was all this picture of other kids who shoplifted, and he said 100% of the time everybody always says no, like even if they even when they know they're caught on camera red-handed, like they'll never admit
Mhm.
it, like until the evidence is out and like there's no way they can deny it. And I think that's just human nature.
Yeah. I guess
That
so.
the
I guess
defensive
so.
nature, yeah.
But and maybe that's why it feels so, for me anyway, when I see people, especially of that like level, that much in the spotlight, like being able to say I was wrong or like I have failed you, like there's something very endearing and
Yeah.
like uh just allows me to be like, to empathize, because I guess because we've
Hmm.
all been there, we've all been the 11-year-old or the like
Depends, because
we've
I've seen I've seen apologies that are just so fake that
No,
because
exactly.
yeah, like when you watch do you know Demi Lovato? When
Yes.
she was like up, she made that apology video and I was watching it. And usually when there's like a big apology video like that, uh all these people on YouTube uh that are what do you call it, like body body language experts, like
Uh-huh.
will watch the, and like speech therapists and shit like that, they'll watch the whole thing and they'll analyze it
Oh.
and like tell you like, oh, this is a sign of them lying, or this is a sign of like all of those things. And but I mean,
Wow.
they don't have to tell me. Like it's so obvious when you watch those things. It's very obvious whether they're genuine or not.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like I could
Yeah.
tell, like in the Adele video, like she was devastated. Like you could just see this like devastation of
Hmm.
like I failed, and I don't even know what the devastation was driven from, but you could just like I wasn't upset
Hmm.
at all that we had, spent this time and money to get these tickets and we weren't going to be able to go. It was like
Hmm.
I wasn't upset at all because I knew how genuine she was being. She was just like another human who had an experience and who had failed, and it's like, "Oh, I could see myself, like I have failed. I have done that. I'm so proud of you for like
Hmm.
it." Instead of like just
It
trying to
probably
keep
because
the
I haven't heard the apology,
yeah.
but it's probably because I mean, the body language expert will probably there is probably a
Yeah.
video out there of somebody who's like analyzing it,
Yeah,
but
probably. I'm going to have to
I,
look now.
a lot of it I think has to do with the fact that when somebody apologizes, even like your friend, right? When you get into argument with a friend and someone apologizes to you, the biggest tell for me is whether they're taking 100% of the blame versus they apologize and then they give an excuse on why
Mhm.
that happened, right? Because if the apology is followed by an excuse, that means you're not really sorry. Do you
Yeah.
understand what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you're basically saying that it's still not my fault because it's because of this
This is
excuse.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No, exactly. Or like when people say, "I'm sorry you felt like that." That's like my number one like pet peeve is when people are
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I'm
I think
sorry
that's
you
what
felt that
Demi
way."
Lovato did. Yeah,
Like,
like making the
what?
apology, making it seem like, oh, you just didn't get
I
my
did
point.
something
You're
wrong.
the
Right.
yeah,
I'm
you're the
sorry you felt
dumbass.
that way. Like,
Doesn't sound very sorry to me.
no. Okay, so are you going to apologize for that? Because I'm like, I'm sorry you felt that way. I see that. I watch a lot of trash TV. Like, I watch all the housewives shows and, like the Real Housewives on Bravo, and you'll see a lot of apologies that are like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm sorry that you felt that way," and I'm just like, oh, "That is such a shitty apology."
Yeah,
What do you? That isn't
yeah.
an apology. I don't know what that is. It's almost like gaslighting, I think. But um,
Where do you think that culture? I mean, not everybody obviously is like that,
no,
but there is definitely a part of elite. I wouldn't even say elite because, like, I would just say like upper middle class, right? And I would consider anyone that's with a household income of $100,000 or more upper middle class. Okay, like people that bought into that whole culture of like this hostile, like I have to condescend you a little bit in order for me to feel better about myself, right? Like
hmm
especially like in cities like New York, LA, like people have bought into that whole culture. Like why? And it's kind of like a recent phenomenon
I
where
think it's social survival. It's a social survival tactic, and
yeah, that's
because
true. Like
we've
comedy. Yeah.
progressed. Yeah, we've progressed so much that we're not worried about hunting and gathering, right? We're now in this phase of um just like the social survival and the social game.
Mhm.
And there's so much like protection, uh, uh like um this armor and these things that we feel like we have to do in order to socially survive, because any kind of vulnerability, I mean, admitting you're wrong in any way, just like we were talking about, admitting you're wrong in any way, that's what an apology is I was wrong. I mean, and that puts you in a vulnerable state of this social survival game where it's no more, the focus is no longer our physical survival.
Yeah.
It's really like our social survival. And every time we admit we're wrong or say we're sorry, or God, that is such a fucking vulnerable place to be. That's like
Yeah.
opening up the lions, like saying, "Come on in, lion. Like, I'm here. I'm caveman. I'm here. I'm just chilling." Like,
I don't even think the fear comes from fear of like what people are gonna do to me or what people are gonna say. I don't even think that's the fear. I think the fear of just saying it alone
yes.
is already, because most likely they're not gonna do anything, which I
Right.
know, but I'm still scared to say it. I guess
Because
it's a fear
it's,
of judgment. Like they're not gonna do anything,
yeah.
but I know what they're gonna think.
Or you think you know what they're going to think, right?
Yeah,
You think you know how they're going
yeah,
to react. You think you make up a lot of stories in your head, not just you, but me, like
uh,
99% of the time, whatever story we've made up in our heads is like, what does Michael say? It like never happens. Like it never
mhm.
happens. Um,
I
Someone
mean,
that we
in that
work
kind of
with.
scenario,
Yeah.
it probably does happen, like where somebody will judge you. Like, but the thing is, you won't know, right, whether somebody judges you or not unless you're inside their brain. So at that point, it's not that it's not going to happen. It's just that you just have to not care, even if it happens.
Well, it is. So what I can tell you is what I believe is it does happen. It is going to happen. We are judgmental beings. The reason that we're
Yeah,
judging is because we're like,
yeah.
it's almost a way of how we survive. You have to
Mhm.
judge. I mean, you're constantly
I mean,
judging
when you're hiring
things.
somebody in an interview, you're judging them
Yeah.
because you have to pick
We're,
1 out of 10. So I have to judge which one's better than other.
yeah. Like, and I think that judgment is going to happen. And I think, again, and maybe like the theme for this conversation for me right now is just like detachment from the judgment. It's like I can't stop myself from judging what people say and how they act and what they're going to do. I really can't.
And it's
But can
not a
I?
bad thing.
No, but I do think it's part of our survival, right? Like
Yeah.
that's innate. We're supposed to be judging things for their safety, for our security,
Uh,
for our survival. So the judgment I don't want to take away, and I don't want to like lose that. But what I have to detach from is like, how am I going to use that judgment? Like, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to get really
mm.
lost in it, wrapped up in it, and use this in a way that's detrimental to me or to the other person, um, or that's unfair to them in some way? But when you say you're completely
That's true.
non-judgmental,
Yeah.
I think that's not that's not
And
true.
like just dropping like the whole like judgment detox thing, or like just getting rid of your judgment is not the answer either. Because like we said, we have to be able to judge in order to hire people, pick our mate. Like if you're
Yes.
dating 3 guys, you have to make a judgment to pick which one, right? Like the things
Right.
like that. Like so
That
that
is that
is
is a
needed. Yeah.
skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
I think we
um
just need to be okay that, for example, let's say I'm one of the 3 guys and I didn't get picked. So obviously I was judged. Son, you're not good enough. You're judged. Like I didn't get picked. I have to understand that yes, I was judged and I'm okay with that.
and I'm not
The
trying
other
to
side of it.
control it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh, I guess
because if
I'm
you're
ranked number
trying
3 out of 3.
that's information.
Yeah.
Like I yeah, you have to detach man, there's so much detachment. I feel like that has to happen from like what other people are going to think. You cannot stop it. Like that's something I feel like we grip to too, is like we're trying to grip toward to like what is son going to think about me when I do
Mm-hmm.
this? It
Who cares?
that is that you're going to lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to lose that game every single fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. Because that is so unpredictable. And so all you're going to cause yourself is a lot of fucking anxiety.
Yep.
And a lot of distress because you have no idea how that's going to go. And so
Yeah.
you have to like, it's
It's
hard
like
to
trying to fight the
do.
market, like
Yeah.
trying to
It's
control.
forcing your
Yeah.
way,
It's
forcing
like,
your way in a,
you
that's a
ever watch
lose game,
a
man.
stand-up comedian like at a small comedy club who's like bombing like terribly, and he's just trying to save it, but instead of like actually being funny, like he's being hostile, and it just gets worse. Like he's like digging his own grave, right? At that
Yeah.
point, like he starts fighting with the audience and shit like that. Like you can't force your way out of that situation, buddy. Like you can't
No, you cannot.
force people to laugh at your jokes. you, in order for
Mm-mm.
them to laugh at your jokes, you have to be funny. And if they're not laughing at your jokes, that means you're not funny. And that's the harsh reality that just hit you. And you need to accept that. Doesn't matter how much you think you're funny, if they're not laughing, you're not funny.
To them. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and that, so it's like, yeah, you have to detach from this like, this expectation that you can control
But you
that
can
you can
control
do something about that.
people.
Control their, yeah, like you can't. I mean, that's so much easier said than done. But I do think it gets into this like you're gonna lose. Like you can play every scenario in your head in trying to predict. And I'm not saying like be careless, because I mean like take a negotiation for example. Like yeah, you are trying to predict like, oh, these are the couple different paths this could go down. Or if you're in a sales job and you're doing negotiation, you're trying to sell things. Yes, like you do need to have a little bit of a prediction of like how this is going to go. But if you are like solely trying to control what someone thinks about you, and like that's why you're focused on is like, okay, I have to say this just right, because if I don't, then son's gonna feel this way about me or think this about me, or dude, that's just like
I
that's like
I
a lot of sleepless nights.
I personally think that even in the interview situation and things like that, like you shouldn't even try to control those things. Like those, like you know, like you
Yeah.
have to like make these points, and like I don't even think you should control those things, because at the end of the day, what was gonna happen is gonna happen. And
What's supposed to be will be, yes.
yeah, and if that person doesn't hire you because of that thing that you just honestly said, or that just came out of you, of you just being yourself, then it probably wasn't. That means that was going to probably cause a problem later on if you hid that information anyway. So
Yeah.
I just think that even like that's my philosophy. Not everybody's like that. Like Steve Jobs is the exact opposite of that philosophy, right? Like he had this like delusion that he can change the world, like that he can actually change people, right? And
Mm-hmm.
to a certain degree he did, right? So that worked for him, right? So if that's who you are and that's where you want to find value, then that's how you should live. You should try to control things. You should try to change the world. You should try to, like Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk is not, he wants to change the world, right? He wants to change people. He doesn't want to just accept, right? But to
Right.
me, like Elon Musk is the last human that I would want to be on this earth, because that seems like a miserable life to me. Do you understand what I mean? But to him,
Yeah.
it's fulfilling. So Elon Musk, go ahead, thank you. Steve Jobs, go ahead. But it's just not me, and I just think most people would be
Yeah.
miserable in that situation.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we're all miserable trying to uh, trying to control other people. That is a miserable place
Yeah.
to be. And
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. So I mean,
Still
we'll never
practicing.
know, right? Like Steve Jobs was probably very miserable, I think.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe his misery was in some ways his comfort. It's probably all he knew.
All right. All right. We should wrap up this one and then we'll do another one. Okay. Thank
All
you for
right.
listening. Bye, everyone. Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.